We're going to present a concept analysis on the topic of self-efficacy as part of Nursing 5120 Graduate Nursing Theory. My name is Beau Burton.
I'm Sarah McVay.
And I'm Charlene Sullivan.
All right. We're going to look at a variety of different things about the concept of self-efficacy. First, we're going to look at its background and significance, its meaning in different published works, the purpose of the concept analysis, definitions and defining attributes. We're going to look at some model cases, antecedents and consequences of self-efficacy, empirical indicators, our operational definition that we've formulated, and a summary of the process as a whole. The concept of self-efficacy dates back to ancient times with Virgil's famous work, the Aeneid. They can because they think they can. Growing up as children, many of us read the book, The Little Engine That Could, often hearing the famous line, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. As far as from an academic standpoint in modern times, Albert Bandura's social cognitive theory basically stands as the foundation for the modern study of self-efficacy. Bandura was a psychologist in the 1970s that did a lot of study in this area. He defined self-efficacy as people's judgment of their capabilities to organize and execute courses of action required to attain designated types of performances. Gandhi once said, "If I have the belief that I can do it, I shall surely acquire the capacity to do it, even if I may not have it at the beginning." Essentially what self-efficacy means is that a person believes they have the ability to carry out a certain task in a certain context. In nursing theory, Bandura's work was central. It was foundational to Noah Pinder's health promotion model. Pinder believed that the patient's self-efficacy was a major determinant of the patient's actual self-seeking behavior. For instance, if the patient believed that they could quit smoking, or they could exercise, or they could eat right, then chances are they probably would, versus a patient who had low to no self-efficacy.
I'm going to discuss the meaning of self-efficacy in published works. Bandura, he believed that the level of self-efficacy could be improved, and the way that he believed that it could be improved was through interventions, modifications of behavior, modeling behavior, interventions such as professional, critiquing. Then there was also Barbara Resnick. She wrote the theory of self-efficacy, which is a middle-range theory, and she also believed that your level of self-efficacy can be improved. And she based that theory on the social cognitive theory. Resnick also believed in the interaction of the person, behavior, and environment. And this is based on Bandura's triadic reciprocal determination figure here, where all of those elements come together to interact within that person. The purpose of us conducting this concept analysis today is to examine and define the element of self-efficacy and how it relates to our patient outcomes. If a patient has positive or high self-efficacy, they're going to really strive to complete their tasks. They're also going to change their behavior in order to affect their current health or their illness status in order to improve that. If they have a negative or low self-efficacy, that is going to affect their motivation. It's going to affect their want to follow through and actually complete their tasks. And it also affects their perceived locus of control. It affects how they feel that they control their end health status.
Supervisor 2551, nursing supervisor 2551.
We're going to look at some definition and defining attributes of self-efficacy. In the Tabor Cyclopedia Medical Dictionary, it's shown to be an aspect of self-perception postulated by Albert Bandura that pertains to one's belief in his or own ability to perform. So you have two things. You have yourself, and that's your identity of a person, and efficacy, which is the power to produce an effect. So you put those together and you get self-efficacy. This is a true conscious awareness of one's ability to have control over actions and the end outcome. attributes of self-efficacy include three things. You've got cognitive, affective, and locus of control. Cognitive is going to show that there's components that prove that individuals with higher self-efficacy are goal setters and they result in successfully achieving that goal. The affective process really looks at your emotions, your control over stress and anxiety, things such as how are you going to put it all together and what can you control, what's your level of stress and anxiety that you can still produce a good outcome. Locus of control looks at your own true belief in their ability to succeed, what you truly believe in it and your outcome there. So all of these factors are influence. They influence your goal level, your goal commitment, selection of your task, your emotional state, your coping effort, and your persistence. We're going to look at 5 different cases when you look at self-efficacy. The cases include a model, a related, a borderline, a contrary, and an embittered case.
The first case that we're going to look at is a model case. And usually a model case is a pure exemplar, meaning that it uses all the different traits related to that concept. So you've got the cognitive, the affective process, and the locus of control. That model case will show all 3 of those attributes. A really good example of a model case would be a patient that is diagnosed with a chronic uncontrolled diabetes, which results in a hospital visit. Perhaps they presented in the ER with DKA. The reason why they were presenting to the hospital, they had a low self-efficacy to complete their tasks, and this was due to them being diagnosed with diabetes and also their lack of knowledge of the disease. The effective processes are they would be educated through modeling and education. They could actually perform those tasks that would help them control their diabetes. It would control their blood sugar levels, either through exercise, medication administration, and also learning about carb control. And they could get corrective feedback from professionals on where they're lacking or where they would need improvements. And this would create a higher level of self-efficacy that would allow that patient the ability to maintain their glucose levels. So in that model case, we showed the cognitive, the affective process, and the locus of control. The next case would be a related case. And a related case is something that presents a similar idea that would be similar to self-efficacy, but only some of the criteria are actually related to the main idea that we're analyzing. Chin and Kramer state that a different word is usually used to label the related instances. So it'd be a different word, but it would have some of the criteria that we were analyzing. So a really good example that would be a related case to self-efficacy would be self-esteem. Self-esteem is similar to self-efficacy in that self-efficacy also has a level of self-esteem. Self-esteem is defined by Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary as confidence and satisfaction within oneself. Similar criteria in both of these concepts are confidence. Both concepts include the idea of confidence, but both concepts use this differently. While they do both include the idea of confidence, in self-esteem, the confidence is within themselves, whereas in self-efficacy, the confidence is in them completing their tasks and achieving that desired health status. A good example would be, say, Mr. B, he has a very high self-esteem because he's a college graduated college, he was able to go on and have a professional career, so that created a very high level of self-esteem within himself. But as far as self-efficacy, a way to state it would be that Mr. B has this high level of self-efficacy after going through his diabetic information education. So by going through that education, he could model behaviors, change his behaviors, and therefore achieve a higher level of self-efficacy when he was able to reach those goals.
A borderline case is a given concept taken into a different context. Basically, you change the context of something and it gives it a completely different meaning. A borderline case is somewhat difficult to identify with self-efficacy because in the academic world, self-efficacy basically has a generalized meaning. There's really no main way to change it. If we were to take just the word efficacy, Webster's dictionary defines it as the power to produce change. So for instance, if a man were to perceive to have high self-efficacy, meaning he can change things about himself. For instance, he can change his skin like a chameleon. All of a sudden, my white skin is going to become red, or it's going to become blue or orange. Or perhaps even he could change his emotions where he's thinking, okay, if he has recently lost a loved one, a close loved one, and he's in a very mournful state, with high self-efficacy, he could become immediately joyful or immediately happy.
A contrary case is an example of what your concept is not. Totally opposite. There's no recognizable attributes in this case. It's very different than what you're hoping to find. An example is a newly diabetic, with a diagnosis that's new to her and new to her health, requires the use of a daily AccuCheck, maybe with meals at bedtime, and the use of sliding scale insulin. A patient who has low self-efficacy feels like she can't handle this, she has no knowledge, she's never practiced, she just can't do it. So what happens is she chooses to not perform these tasks at all. She says, to heck with this, I'm not going to do it, and she becomes totally dysfunctional in her own health care. So this is going to then result in hyperglycemia, poor diabetes management, and of course multiple ER visits or even admits. She shows no self-efficacy for herself. The last case is an invented case. This is kind of a neat way to look at it. It's not very often used, but this is when you see ideas of a model that are outside of your own experience and they're similar to science fiction, so normally they're not very real. An example is a previously healthy person undergoes a knee amputation, below the knee amputation for an injury, becomes dependent on things like a wheelchair or crutches, and decides that he doesn't want to use those, that he is all capable of, not needing medical assistance and not needing help to be mobile. He becomes, belief in himself that he can hop everywhere, as an example. You and I all know that this is not true. You can't hop everywhere for the rest of your life, and so therefore will end up failing at this. But at that moment, he has the belief in himself that he can do something that is truly not capable or even able to do. Antecedents and consequences. Antecedents must exist to happen or happen prior to the consequence of a concept. So Bandura uses 4 principal sources, and an example of these, or the 4 principal, include ability to complete a task successfully, maybe observing someone else who has achieved the task that you're wanting to, maybe they've achieved it successfully, receiving positive feedback in relation to that specific task, and relying on physiological clues. So an example is this. You have a patient, they're a smoker, they know it's bad for them, and they know they can complete it. They know they can achieve the goal of quitting smoking, plain and simple. Or you have the patient who's, they've seen their best friend, they've quit smoking, they feel better, they want to do it because they've seen someone else achieve the task that they are looking at. Or you have the patient who's receiving positive feedback. They have a supportive spouse that smokes also. They're going to support each other through this challenge, and together with positive feedback from each other, they're going to quit smoking. And lastly, your physiological clues. Say you have a patient who is short of breath, has low oxygen level, requires oxygen supplementally everywhere he goes. So physiologically, he's got clues and things happening to his body that clue him into the fact that, hey dude, you need to quit smoking. So he uses those kind of clues. How a person thinks, feels, motivates, and acts will, in the end, influence their own self-efficacy. Consequences show a theoretical relationship between self-efficacy and the outcomes of many things such as self-management, coping, emotional stress, cost, healthcare utilization and how they use their resources, disease control, depression and functional outcomes, and then the end quality of their life.
Some empirical indicators of measurement of self-efficacy. There were a few scales that were created. The first one here is the self-efficacy scale, the generalized self-efficacy scale, which was created to measure one's own optimistic self-beliefs. And it was created because the beliefs of one's actions are ultimately responsible for their success in their health outcome. And so they want to measure one's own idea that their actions are responsible. Also, the second one is the medication adherence self-efficacy scale. This was created to measure patients who had a high self-efficacy or low self-efficacy, believed if they could or could not take all of their medications all the time. And then the third is outcome expectations for exercise scale. That scale was created, it was identifying the elderly that had low expectations on the effects of exercise in their life. And these were all created to measure self-efficacy.
We're going to look at our operational definition of self-efficacy. Everyone possesses varying degrees of self-efficacy. You're not going to see two people really even have the same degree. The process of self-efficacy can be viewed as having a positive or negative feedback mechanism. Every outcome of everything they do in their life, in result, has some type of effect on how they continue to meet certain goals. Failure to do well will lead to, of course, weak efficacy, and strong belief leads to perseverance, and even during hard times they're able to overcome that and keep on going. So self-efficacy is the perceived ability to complete a certain task.
The concept of self-efficacy has been a force in human functioning since ancient times. It is something that we all think about on a daily basis. Can I accomplish this task? Even right now, can I make it through grad school? Can I endure this? We see it playing a role in our patients' lives every day. You know, I can't keep up this treatment regimen. For a diabetic, I can't stick myself 3 times a day. I can't carry out this diet. For the smoker, I can't quit smoking. But they can. And it's our responsibility as advanced practice nurses to play an active role in encouraging our patients and teaching our patients, in showing them that they can do it and they can achieve their goals and increase their self-efficacy. There's so much research and so many studies have shown that the patients with higher self-efficacy do so much better and have so much greater patient outcomes. As we move on and we become advanced practice nurses, engaging with our patients is showing them how they can be effective and how they can be successful in taking care of themselves. Needs to be a foundational role for us. This concludes our presentation, and we thank you.